So Erik, your work as a photographer, I know you're a man of words and photos, is intriguing to me. The other day there was this beautiful sunset outside the NPR building, and in a building filled with people who speak for a living, everybody lined up at the window and had nothing to say about this beautiful sunset. We all just sort of stared at it in awe. And so a beautiful image is evocative. We can feel it move our soul. But how do you tell a story? How is it that a picture paints 1,000 words?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. It's great to hear that. Beautiful moments like that when you're speechless. It's the same sort of thing that I go for with photography. And when I do assignments, a lot of times when I work up a new assignment, my first feeling is how does the imagery work into this? What kind of subjects am I going to need to show in order to basically build the words around? I think maybe I come at stories backwards in a lot of ways, but for me the visuals are a really big part of telling the story, and whether I go on to use them to illustrate the story or mount an exhibit or something like that, through the images you can continue to tell those stories, and it reaches people that won't sit and read a blog post, But the point is changing people, and what I've always found is that changing people means telling stories, sharing your story. And I think I learned that most clearly when I was teaching sixth graders. Tell a story and you'll change everything in the classroom, at least for that 5-10 minutes. And it resets everyone. Everyone can listen to you now because you're telling your story or someone else's story. So how that, I try to bring that into all the stories I do. I start with the personal. I bring in the community, and then we try to work in the macro. And I think that's sort of like how a lot of the good stories work is, how is, say, the food system affecting me? And then how is it affecting you and me? In our, what's the food system mean to our community? And then you dial it out, and you talk about, the macro level, the policy and the trends and what's going on with the movements that are trying to change how it works, what's industry have to say about it. But those 3 points are really important to me and help tell that story. And how it works for Orion, where I work, in Orion Magazine, we have these, sometimes have had these one-page stories that we do. And I would tell you a couple real quick that worked real great. One is over a decade ago, we had LaDonna Redmond talk about driving around Chicago, the west side of Chicago, talking about how this place is a food desert, how she needed Whole Foods for her son who was deathly allergic to everything. And she couldn't shop at this big new grocery store called Whole Foods because all of her friends said, well, that's whole paycheck, So I'd never heard of food deserts before, and then I heard of whole paycheck, and then she talks about, what her community had to say about it, what her husband and her talked about. And the way she brought it around was saying, we're going to start a local agriculture project here in the city, and we're going to create a greater diversity of food for us and a greater diversity of people around the table as well. Not just diversity of food on the table, but around the table, people that we're going to break bread with. So, just beautiful in one page. She said all that, and, personal, community, and macro, brought it all back around. Michael Pollan, in 2003, he wrote a similar one-pager for us where he shared his misgivings about the national standards for organic that were coming down and saying, I see industry moving into this so fast, and I don't feel like it's going to change the food system like we hope the organic movement was going to do. And what he ended up saying, his thesis was, it's time to get over organic, people. It's time to look at local. Local is the new organic movement. And it surprised a lot of people. I mean, it surprised me. I did apprenticeships at organic farms after college, and I said, what? But then I realized, oh yeah, but I was selling a lot of the organic produce at the farmer's market. And he's totally right. So he brought it all back around and beautifully. So for me, those are the sort of things that really work very well, and that's a good example of what we're trying to do at Orion is bring innovative new ideas around, but make them really personable and tell the story from where people can hear it. And the innovation part is a great thing too. We had a big feature about food hubs not too long ago. And I think for all of us here today or watching a live stream, the download really is, we're all part of the food system, we're all eaters. There's an outlet for all of us. We can create our own outlets now. You know, we don't have to look too far, but there's incredible things like, you know, the edible publications that are in so many cities now that you can write for. There are blogs, there are video channels. That, you know, it depends on what you're interested in. But the opportunities now are really so great. And so I would just tell everyone just to start telling stories.